Good morning, everyone. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day today, a little bit warmer, I think, so I don't think we have any fear of snow today, which is a good thing. I hope everyone is doing very well. Today's composer of the day is Claude Debussy. Claude Debussy was a composer of what we refer to as the Impressionistic time, which would be right after or kind of the later time of Romantic era, kind of leading us into the more contemporary era. You'll see some of, actually most of the books that actually have his music inside of them often have some impressionistic art of the time as well, and you can see that the artwork of this impressionistic era around the same time that he was composing music did not have very clear defined lines. You can see it looks a little bit blurry. You can't really tell kind of one thing from the next. We'll look at some other pieces of art from this time as well. But you'll notice when you hear the music, it may sound a little bit kind of like this artwork, a little bit blurry, a little bit more kind of more pedal on piano, kind of more notes that are held that don't, you may not sound like they quite go together, and then they kind of resolve out, as we say. They kind of work their way to a more pleasing sound to the ear. So I hope you enjoy the activities for Debussy that I've included, and the little bits of information about his life. Enjoy! Claude Debussy was born in a village outside of Paris on August 22nd, 1862. Although his parents were neither musicians, they encouraged and supported Claude's early artistic talents. He was schooled by his mother, and he showed a dislike for lessons, but a love of color, design, pictures, and natures. He wanted to be a painter. By the age of 8, Claude shows musical talent, and an aunt arranged for him to have piano lessons. His father, who loved music, encouraged his daily practicing, and Claude's practice soon paid off. When he was 10, he entered the Paris Conservatoire of Music, and while there, Debussy began to compose, and he won top composition honors. When Debussy was in his 20s, he was hired as a live-in piano teacher for Nadezhda von Meck, a wealthy woman who also helped famous composer Peter Tchaikovsky, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Together, they traveled to Switzerland, Italy, and Russia, where he became exposed to new musical styles that influenced his composition even further. Debussy found more in common with the artists and poets of his day than the composers we knew. Impressionistic painters like Claude Monet and Auguste Renoir and symbolist poets like Paul Verlaine believed the whole impression of a work of art was more anything than studying the specific details that made it up. This is why a lot of his music sounds very similar to what we would think a sound would be of a piece of artwork. The more blurred together lines and the blurred together sounds that you hear. Debussy's titles show the link he felt with painters and poets. Instead of naming his pieces like Bach or Mozart, like Fugue or Concerto or String Quartet, he named them with titles that drew a picture, such as Clouds, Garden in the Rain, or Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun. He wanted his music to sound natural, as if it was more improvised than written down. To improvise means that you just simply sit down and start playing what comes to mind, and this is what he wanted his music to sound like. One of the ways he did this was to make his music with new sounds. His rhythms were more fluid and blurred than the usual rhythms. His harmonies left the unusual Western tones of what they were used to of the time, and the color of his music was blended and shaded. He often used what he called a breathing pedal on the piano to make his new sounds blend, float, and come alive. He believed that there were no rules to music, that the pleasure of listening was music's only law. Debussy married twice, and from the second marriage came one daughter, to whom the Children's Corner is dedicated. Later, his musical energy was greatly affected by illness and the stresses of World War I, and he died on March 25th, 1918, shortly before the end of World War I.